my personality was such that I just dove in. Doesn't matter that you're there 12 hours a day. When you're loving doing it and it's music and the band's coming in that night or early that morning, you're going to be there. You're going to be a part of it. We had Dave Matthews Band coming into the basement of the radio station for a live morning show broadcast, and our morning show was darn good. I'm telling you, whatever it was, next Tuesday, Dave Matthews Band is going to be in the basement. Dave Matthews Band crashed the radio station's website on a Tuesday morning at Kiss One Right in Boston. It's truly one of the more amazing moments, dare I say, of my life, not just of a career. The time I started at Spotify was the beginning of June. 4 weeks later, June 28th, in Santa Monica, 6 a.m., my phone rings 3 times in a row. It's one of those times that before even rolling over, I'm like, this can't be good. I had an old boss had a great line is, you don't work for companies, you work for people. And it's so true. It's in those moments that you really get to experience it. And then in hindsight, you look back and realize how lucky you were that those were the people that you worked for.
What's up, everybody? I'm Alex Lobert, and welcome to the best job I've ever had. On today's show, I'm talking with music and tech executive, Peter Szabo. Peter's had a front row seat to the transformation of the music industry. He started his career at the iconic Boston radio station Kiss 108. He was their first ever internet content director. He was there to try to figure out, how do you create engaging content, or what is engaging content for the internet? And through experimentation, he figured that out for bands like the Backstreet Boys, Dave Matthews Band, Jay-Z, and really shaped how we engage with our favorite artists online. But he didn't actually stay in radio. From there, he stepped into leadership roles at some of the most iconic tech and music companies. Pandora, he was one of the first employees at Shazam, and ultimately at Spotify. Now, today, Peter has his own company, The Idea Factory, where he creates artists and brand collaborations that are rooted in authenticity. These are the kind of collaborations where the artist really loves the product that they're promoting. He's got some great stories about the lead singer of the Struts riding a Harley Davidson into one of their shows. It's pretty cool to see the power and magic when you have that kind of authentic collaboration. Beyond his impressive resume, Peter really brings deep insight into the human side of success. From how curiosity and tenacity drive innovation, why great leaders prioritize kindness, and ultimately how a generous act from a boss, especially in a really challenging moment, can be life-defining. Today, we dive into Peter's journey from experimentation through to industry-defining moments. And we explore how the best job starts with passion and really takes shape through curiosity and a willingness to experiment. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Here's Peter Szabo. Peter, welcome to the show.
Hey, Alex. Great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Where does this podcast find you today?
So right now we are in beautiful Greensboro, Georgia.
I have actually been to this house, if I'm not mistaken. If you're ever wondering whether you should be on Peter's team, the answer is yes, because I will never forget the concert in the middle of the lake that we went to, the acoustic set with Alana Springsteen.
Ah, great memory. Yeah, in the middle of Lake Oconee. Absolutely. Yeah, that was, 3 years ago now, as the world was starting to open up from COVID, and we needed a place to host our Spotify team gathering, and no better place than Lake Oconee, Georgia. And we had a blast for 3 days.
It truly was hard to get there, but it was like totally worth it. Totally worth it.
Yeah, you fly into Atlanta and then you just drive east for an hour and a half. But yeah, once you do that, you're in a beautiful spot. And April, May is the perfect time to come hang here. And that's when you guys all came. It was a blast.
Okay, I'm coming back. But so again, thanks so much for chatting with me today. I thought this would be just a ton of fun, largely because one, I just always enjoy talking with you, but two, you have a very fascinating career in the music industry, right? You worked in radio, you've worked in emerging technology for music for a long time. You were one of the early employees at Shazam, or executives at Shazam, also working at Spotify. But then you also have and we'll talk maybe a little bit, like you're also an entrepreneur and you have built your own company working with artists. So like really cool seeing every side, I think, of the music industry.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate, exactly as you say. I loved my time in radio, starting in Boston, and then the tech version of radio, starting with Pandora, and then as you said, Shazam, Spotify. I joke with my friends that my friends think I work for music companies. Those are really more tech companies, as you well know. The behind the scenes is a lot of engineers and product people, programmers. But we were the teams that interact with the music industry to help music be on those platforms and then help all those artists and managers benefit from those platforms and find more listeners. And so to be a part of that ride at a few of those stops was truly a blast. And I consider myself lucky to have played roles at those companies in some way along the way.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've acquired a few stories, which maybe we can chat about. Okay, so how about we dive in?
Let's do it.
All right, Peter Szabo, what is the best job that you've ever had?
Alex, I've been debating this mentally since you asked me to do this, and that was the question posed initially. And I'm going to go with one of my first jobs out of college, actually, to go way, way back, because it was such a foundational job for a variety of reasons. But it was a weird title. It's called Internet Content Director for Kiss 108 and Jammin' 94.5 in Boston, a top 40 station and a hip hop station in early 2000s. And Internet Content Director is a fancy term for the guy who made the content and put up the pictures and videos on the websites. And I'm going to sound like a dinosaur at some parts of this story, but it kind of is what it is. I was the guy that basically got to put pictures and videos to the content that was on an audio platform called radio. And it was when the internet was first starting to get going, and we were just trying a bunch of things. And I love trying to maximize opportunities and situations. And this was one of those cases where our general manager came to me and literally said, here's this platform, here's what we think you should do. And then a marketing director who said even more so, go try some stuff. Oh yeah, you need some money for a video camera? Sure. You need some money for still cameras? Yeah, sure. Here you go. You want a team to shoot extra content at our big events? Yeah, sure. And we managed to bring pictures and videos to life for these great things that let the audience see what was going on behind the scenes at the radio station and at these concerts that were sold out that only a certain number of people could get to. And some of the things that really stand out in my head were the moments that, we had a crowd outside the radio station because the Backstreet Boys were inside, and it was the radio DJ, the guys from the band, and myself in that studio. Yeah, taking pictures as quickly as I could, trying to capture as much as I could at that time. And this was pre-live streaming day, so I had to take the pictures, then go to the next room and load them onto the website, and then see them, come up, and then see how many people check them out right away, because the DJ is saying, hey, we just put up some new batch of pictures, go check them out. I love that. And then we did the same thing with Jay-Z and Ja Rule and all these artists, early 2000s. It was such a cool role that implanted in me the power of these artists and the connection between fans and artists and being that conduit. And then also, as you said, with emerging technology, seeing how much people at home wanted to see along with just hear, and to see the pictures, to see the videos, early days of editing video, to put up sizzle reels and just highlight reels. Those were great, and people love those. And then eventually, I'm sure we'll talk about this, but it led to getting things sponsored, because when people are watching them, brands want to be associated with them, and we found ways to create cool moments for brands to be tied in with this as well. So that was such a cool, fun job that I was lucky to get paid for. I can say a few years later that truly, when you ask me what my all-time best job I ever had was, I still go back to that.
So many things I want to dive into. First of all, you listed off every, major artist from my childhood, Peter. Backstreet Boys, Jay-Z, Ja Rule. You were living the dream I wanted whenever I was 10 years old.
Yeah, but you and me both. To be able to be told, get in there, you have to take pictures. It wasn't even like, hey, excuse me, can I come in and I'll take some pictures? It's like, no, you have to be in there. And it was it was a tiny studio and there wasn't much room, but I got my way in there, took some pictures, took some video. And yeah, it was quite a fun experience.
First question though, Did you know that was going to be the job? I feel like, this job sounds like a bit of a unicorn.
No,
right?
the short answer is no.
Yeah.
The short answer is no. The longer answer involves some phenomenal mentors in my life who were kind enough to look out for me. One of whom was the previous head of marketing who I was working with, and she was going to leave the company, and she made sure to try and find a new role for me, knowing that I was her executive assistant at the time, that wasn't going to be possible anymore as she left the company, and tried to find me a different role. And when I first heard about this, I kind of thought, I don't know. And she literally was the one who said, you're good at technology. This internet thing's going to be big. You got to go and you'll figure it out. And wouldn't you know it, she was right. And I tremendously value what she did for me at that time and what that then it set me up for. But to your question, what the heck the internet was and how powerful it was going to become and how I got to go in there and figure it out. I didn't know that that's what it was going to be. It was more of, this is cool, let's go do it. And then at that time, my personality was such that I just dove in. Back in the single days, you can spend a lot more time at a radio station, and it doesn't matter that you're there 12 hours a day. When you're loving doing it and it's music and the band's coming in that night or early that morning, you're going to be there. You're going to be a part of it. And good hustle energy, kind of led to more good things from there. But it was truly just, oh yeah, I did that. And if I did this extra thing, I think it'll be even better. And oh, I did it this way last time. If I get another camera next time, oh yeah, okay, let me get this other person who's on our team to come in and help us shoot it. All right, great. Now we got 2 cameras for this. That just kept growing what we were doing in a cool way, but it wasn't with any grand plan. We didn't know. It was truly building it as we went, which is the first of many times in my career that I was able to do that. But we didn't know from the start.
Well, really good on that mentor, right? And by the way, I think there's a theme that comes up in a lot of these conversations is having someone, a mentor ahead of you who can provide that wisdom to 22-year-old?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's exactly
22 to 22-year-old
exactly
Peter.
Right.
Like that is so invaluable, right? And being able to understand the direction of the industry. But then I think the other cool thing you said, which I'd love to touch on and get your perspective on, is the ability for you to experiment. Can you maybe talk about just the ability to experiment, feeling empowered? Was that a key part of what made the job so amazing?
I guess for me, I've always felt much more comfortable experimenting when I didn't think there was a right way to do things. And because the internet was so new, there very clearly wasn't a right way. There was a bunch of ways that we're going to try and we're going to see what works. And so that to me somehow in my mind opened up this freedom of let's just try some stuff and see what works. And then I coupled that with being a lover of music and a fan of these artists. I put myself in the shoes of someone who 5 years ago was a listener of this radio station, and what would I want to have on this radio station's website? And I always thought about it from that standpoint of, well, if I'm sitting at home and I'm listening to the interview with, Jay-Z, Backstreet Boys in the studio, I'd want to see what was going on in that studio. Okay, let's put up some pictures. I'd want to see more. Let me put up some video. Let me see them walking in. Let me see them walking out. Let me see that interaction after the cameras or the microphone goes off. That's the perspective that I was able to bring to it because I was genuinely a fan. And this is also a big theme of being at jobs where I genuinely loved the product. I loved that radio station. I listened to it growing up. Same thing later on with Shazam and Spotify, Pandora. I loved those products. So I was able to think in that way. Then on the inside, say, okay, how would I make this better now that I'm working here? And how would this role where I'm in charge of getting the right content on their website really work if I want to maximize what the fans are getting at home? And so I love that. And then, I mentioned the general manager, I mentioned the head of marketing, truly saying, yeah, we trust you. We believe in you. We never, and I don't even know, thinking back, I don't even know if it was that explicit. It was truly in the way, and I try to bring this forward too, of hire experts or as much of an expert as you can get to do the thing. And I looking back, not to toot my own horn, I think I was as much of an expert as you could have gotten in those days. And I didn't have any grand training, and it was just more of an interest in a technology background where yeah, I could do that stuff. Okay, cool. Let me lean in. And then I think once you see some success with it and you saw some numbers, where people were looking at them, and then we started to compare against other cities and other radio stations, and we saw that our numbers were higher. as a result of what we were doing, and the marketing team started to really trust what we were doing and promote it more, then the snowball really started rolling, and that momentum kept picking up. And then you're off and running. And then it's like, okay, cool. Now we have stuff to build on. Now we can do it better next time. And that was a really cool evolution too.
There's also that magic, right, of you're actually seeing business results.
Yeah.
Not only were you experimenting, were you getting to produce content that you thought was great, but also you're like, okay, actually now we are seeing the results for the business. I can actually be impactful for this product that I love. I feel like that's usually very empowering. And I love your thoughts on this. I'm going to assume you got pretty good. Like I can just hear it from right now, like the passion you bring a lot of passion in anything you do, Peter, but the passion you have for this, I assume you became a pretty darn good marketer, or a pretty internet content. I think functionally marketing. Would you consider?
Yeah.
Marketing?
I mean, next job. Yeah. The next job is marketing director of a different station, but yeah, it really was. And especially when you could look at raw numbers pretty quickly and see, did we have 50 people watch tonight? Do we have 100? Do we have 2,000? Do we have 50,000? Do we have 100,000? And when we got to the hundreds of thousands and then millions, that's when it got really interesting to realize, okay, we are in the city of Boston, so we have one city reach, but within that, we're reaching a pretty high percentage of people who were tuned in at that point, who then went on the website or who went on the website later. And that's where, the art and the science are always interesting. And this is where the internet, really helped with raw numbers. The scorecard came really quickly, and we knew this worked, this didn't. And we just, honestly, it's so logical to me, but it's absolutely based on the passion, as you're pointing out. I just wanted to keep making it better. I just wanted to have more people check it out. And we saw what types of pictures worked. And one of the ones that surprised us was how many people wanted to see crowd pictures at the major station concerts that we went to. So there were 20,000 people at the Tweeter Center at the time. Now it's called the Xfinity Center, a big shed outside of Boston. And we put up the crowd pictures. We started off with one crowd photo album. We ended up with like 4 a year later because everyone wanted to see themselves on the website. And it's just fast forward to TikTok, right, Instagram, the self-promotion side of it was huge. People want to see themselves on the Jumbotron at the Celtics game. They want to see themselves on the website for Kiss 108. And so we just ended up doing more crowd pictures, but that was because we noticed it and saw that people clicked on it. Okay, let's do more of that. And so that's why I say, like, I don't think it's any grand plan so much as let's just follow the numbers when we get the scorecard back so quickly, because we can actually see what people are reacting to.
It's really interesting, right? Because there's psychology under what you were talking about. It's very complicated.
Yeah, 100%. Can I tell you one fun story
please.
that popped into mind? So we had gotten, as this momentum was going, we had gotten pretty good, and we had gotten noticed by, I think Clear Channel owned us at the time. And they were developing a national website team of kind of best practices and, tips and tricks for everyone. And they were centralizing a lot of this is technical behind the scenes, but they were centralizing a lot of the hosting. Where we used to host ourselves, we could have as much demand as we needed, or bandwidth as we needed based on demand. They were going to centralize it, and they were going to get a big corporate discount, and it was going to be great. I'm oversimplifying a lot of things here, but the general gist was they were going to take over and make sure that we had enough bandwidth. Well, we had Dave Matthews Band coming into the basement of the radio station for a live morning show broadcast, and our morning show was darn good. This Maddie in the Morning was a killer jock and drove a ton of traffic. And we knew when he went on and said, hey, we're going to live stream it, or hey, we have video pictures up, it's going to drive a lot of traffic. And I relayed that to our contact at corporate and said, hey, we're going to be doing this event next week. Normally buy more bandwidth, make sure that we had enough people make sure that we had enough bandwidth that whoever went to the website that morning would see pictures and video, not the site is down. God, I sound old when I start talking about the site is down. But, and the guy said, yeah, well, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. We do this all the time for national types of things. You guys are local. It'll be fine. I said, I'm telling you, we push a lot of traffic. Here's the numbers from the past couple. Yeah. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Okay, I'm telling you, whatever it was, next Tuesday, Dave Matthews Band is going to be in the basement. So the show starts at 6. Dave Matthews Band's coming in at 7. Maddie starts pre-promoting it. 6 o'clock, hey, make sure you check out the live stream. 6:15, make sure you check out the live stream. 7 o'clock, coming up. And at 6:45, as the traffic is normally ramping up as people are driving to the office, He hits it again and says, "Oh, we got Dave Matthews Band coming in 15 minutes. Make sure you check out the live stream." I get a call on my cell phone from that guy corporate going, "What the heck are you guys doing? You're about to crash all of our national servers." I'm like, "Dude, we told you this is exactly what this station is known for. We've gotten pretty good at this." And he goes, "Tell your guy he can't plug it anymore." I said, "There is absolutely no way I'm going to him and telling him that." He is so proud to have Dave Matthews in. The last thing we're doing is not promoting it. And we had to figure out what to do, and he tweaked some stuff really quickly. But the site was down for a couple minutes, and Maddie was not happy about that. As nor should he be. But it was one of those moments of like, we got pretty good at knowing what traffic we could do, and Dave Matthews Band crashed the radio station's website on a Tuesday morning at Kiss 108 in Boston.
That is so good. I'll also like, one is just generally having Dave Matthews Band amazing, but also nice affirmation when you know you're good at your job, because you literally are going to crash the website because you got too much traffic.
Yeah. The fun thing is, as a result of that, we got asked to give a lot more tips and tricks to our sister radio stations around the country, which is what eventually led me to go to Santa Monica. But that was a big part of it, of just figuring out what works, keep doing more of it. And then, at fun times like that, really kind of showing how much we can drive in terms of eyeballs.
I'm curious what you thought made you so good, right? I mean, clearly you were having success. Looking back, or even in the moment, do you have a sense for what was it? Like, what did you have that allowed you to deliver in the way that you were?
I love the way you phrase that question, because it puts me in the position of just going along with the assumptive that I'm good at what I did. So thank you. That's very, very nicely phrased and praised for me. I appreciate that. I go back to 3 traits that honestly are a huge part of it there, and certainly carried through to pretty much any role. I should say any role I've had, but it's really curiosity, hustle, and tenacity. So the curiosity around what's going to be the best for this, what's the best type of picture, what's the best type of video, what's the best type of editing we can do. That curiosity, how do we make this better, all serves it. Hustle is like, we're going to be scrappy. We're going to get there early. We're going to stay late. We're going to put in the time, effort, energy needed for that in a very passionate, strong way. And then the tenacity is, we're going to stick with it. We're going to make sure this thing happens. We're going to make sure that we stay with it as long as we need to. And then you kind of rinse and repeat on those 3. I mean, those 3 have been huge for me. And I've said this to sales teams. I've said this to marketing teams. I genuinely believe that those 3, when you genuinely are curious, again, based on a passion, based on something that you enjoy, and you add the hustle and the tenacity, I think that those 3 are a phenomenal combination.
Curiosity, hustle, and tenacity. I love it.
Yeah.
I think these are really important skills, and they actually are skills. Like, how do you cultivate that curiosity, have that hustle, and then, again, you're right, tenacity to just get things done. With that, I think this is a good transition point. I'd love to move on to our next segment, Crossroads. Peter, was there a decision or moment in your career that was critical to getting you to where you are now?
That is a great question. The first was leaving Boston and getting to Santa Monica. I always hesitate saying this because I don't want it to be any knock on Boston. I absolutely love my hometown. I just wanted a bigger sandbox to play in, and it truly was New York, Chicago, or LA. I may have told you this story before, but my parents got divorced as my dad was down in Southern California, and it was one February. I was out on his back patio, and I think it was 60 degrees in February. And I'm going, well, what the heck am I considering Chicago or New York for? Those towns have this thing called winter still. And I don't like that so much. This 60 degrees in February, I can get used to this. And a year later, I'm in Santa Monica. And then getting to LA, which is such a creative driven town. And when I got the chance to open the Shazam LA office, it truly was an example of, we were more successful making TV ads Shazamable in Los Angeles than our counterparts in New York, because that concept of taking your TV ad and making it Shazamable to make it interactive immediately resonated with people in LA because it was so much more of a creative driven community. They're like, that's a cool idea, let's do it. And we had multiple occasions where we were going to make an auto commercial Shazamable, we were going to make a clothing commercial Shazamable, and we'd be 5 steps down the line. They'd be like, by the way, how much does that cost? And I've never seen anything like that, where just the idea flowed so well that they didn't bother to ask, and we figured out what the price was and then got them, made sure we got paid. But it wasn't led with that, where our counterparts in New York kept hearing, the first question was, how much does this cost? And who am I not going to buy if I'm going to buy you instead? And that transactional nature was so much more difficult to get that concept going. And so when you talk about a moment that was critical, getting to LA so I could be in that creative driven town where certainly there's commerce that goes along with it, but it's creative first, to me is a flourishing of my career and an acceleration of my career that I don't think would have happened if it wasn't for that.
It's so fascinating, right? Surrounding yourself by these creative people and really finding your community, that was an accelerant. It's interesting how that really just does change the dynamic of working with a product like Shazam and the way people think about it. And the other part of it, by the way, I think it's an important thing to note, making a decision also for your personal well-being. Like Santa Monica was just like, yes, it was a great business decision for you, but it also was a decision that like probably made you happier. Don't get me wrong. I think you would have figured it out if you'd come to Chicago, but at the same time, I think that clearly was the right place for you.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think the community of people, LA has this aspirational chasing a dream type of thing, where I would never have described it in that, cinematic type way of like, I was chasing my dream. But it truly was. I met my wife who moved from Philadelphia to LA for similar reasons. And we met friends from Detroit who were there for similar reasons. And some came and went and moved back to their hometown when it came time to buy a house or raise family because they want to be closer to family. And that's totally fine. And that worked great for those people. But the ones who stayed still have an amazing love for Los Angeles in a new way. But it's that collective community, as you're saying, that you end up making great friends who are also great colleagues because you're there with a commonality. It's so true.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about Shazam? I feel like it's ubiquitous now after it got bought by Apple. I think we forget like it was this groundbreaking technology.
I love Shazam. I will, when you ask me, can I talk about Shazam? How long you got? Like I will happily talk about the greatest magic trick of all time, all day. I still think the fact that you can hold your phone up and out of thin air, it pulls, the song you're listening to is black voodoo magic, unlike anything the world has ever seen. But kudos to Avery Wang and Chris Barton and the other two guys who unfortunately don't get named as much, but also co-founders who are awesome, Philippe and oh gosh, I forgot the other one's name. Apologies. All phenomenal guys to do this. So when I joined, I believe I was employee number 4 in the US, and I think something like low 70s globally. So the company, though it was based from Silicon Valley with guys who were there, went to London, got funded there. There's a way better origin story that Chris Barton will tell you if you want to go on YouTube and find it. It's awesome. He had the concept and had to find an audio engineer to actually do this. That was Avery Wang. Figured out how to actually pull this out of thin air and do the recognition part. And we were the team after a while in London where, I don't know if you ever remember this, you used to actually, pre-iPhone, you could, on a flip phone, dial down the center, 2580, hit send, let it listen in the club, and a minute later you get an SMS text message telling you the name of the song. Then you'd be charged £1 for that, and that's how the company basically treaded water until the iPhone came along. That was all super cool, and the fact that it worked on a flip phone made it easier to work on the iPhone when the technology got better. We were the team that was brought on to try and monetize it outside of music. The concept that we were brought in for was, as I said, to make TV ads Shazamable, make them interactive by, when the Old Navy commercial plays, Shazam it, you can buy those jeans immediately. When the Honda commercial plays, you can schedule a test drive for the Accord. When the Men in Black 2 commercial plays, you can buy your tickets on Fandango or watch the full trailer. Again, commonality to what I said earlier. I loved it. I thought that was such a cool use of technology, something I would easily do, something I would want to do. And I got to be the guy that represented the sales team that went out and actually put those deals together. Now, early days, you want to talk about building stuff? how in the world do you come up with a price of what Old Navy should pay to make their TV ad interactive? We had to come up with what that price was. And it was myself, my boss, Evan at the time, and a couple of other people at the company, literally using all of our media background to try and figure out what the appropriate price point was for those things. What is the market going to bear? What is appropriate for this? There's new technology costs. We tried to use all that, and we got to a point, and there's also kind of a new technology cost for companies in general, where anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000 is kind of trial and error cost basically for companies that they'll experiment. I have an experimentation budget, I can do that. And then again with data, we showed them, okay, you had X number of people that watched the commercial, Y number of people Shazammed it. And then we had a ratio pretty quickly of you've got a Shazam rate that you can look at. Early days of sales weren't that big just because it was so clunky. If you, again, sound like a dinosaur, but early days of actually Shazamming things, you get to hunt and peck your credit card and your shipping address and your billing address. It all autofills these days. But back then you had to do it manually. It was so hard. So they weren't converting a lot. But awareness-wise, these creative agencies, Crispin, who did the Old Navy ad, loved it because they could say, we took your TV ad and made it even more effective because we got people on the mobile device to continue with it beyond the 30 seconds of the commercial.
It's interesting for me to hear the connection actually between the way you were experimenting even at KISS 108 through to what you were doing at Shazam.
Say, how deep do you want to get into my parents' upbringing of me? Because it's fascinating to look back and realize what comes from which parent. My dad is a research physician and researched ulcers. And so from his lab work that I just observed growing up, it was constant experimentation. How are you going to fix this? How is this going to get better? How are we going to find this type of medicine? How are we going to improve this type of medicine? That you don't realize it at the time, but comes through exactly how you're describing in completely different non-medical applications. Much to my dad's chagrin, I never went to be a doctor, obviously, but I was able to use that sort of trial and error in these roles in music and technology in a similar way to make sure we had the best outcome. And I still say, I am a maximizer through and through. I can't do something halfway. I still remember that I was at the radio station. I distinctly remember on a Friday night, we had a big radio station event the next day, big concert. And I remember being at the radio station at 10:30 at night, saying to myself, I should go home. I need a good night's sleep. And I'm thinking, no, the guest list isn't ready for this meet and greet. We had like 8 artists or something, and we were doing 8 different groups of meet and greets. And the team was off executing something. And so I was the one who was in the station trying to finalize some stuff. I'm like, no, I'm going to get this right. And it was truly in my mind of like, that's just how my mind works. I need to do this right. I can't not let this be done properly. And so I'm the one who's going to do it. I might be here till 11. I might be here till midnight. I might have to be up at 6 a.m. or 4 a.m., whatever it was. I'm going to do it. That's just how my brain works. And truly, I now view that with such appreciation because it's helped me in so many ways. And that's just how my brain works.
I'm sure your dad is proud. I'm sure it took a minute for him probably to reconcile. Oh, what does your son do?
Well, this is good. I now have a reason to send him a link to this podcast. Not that I wouldn't have anyway, but yeah, it took him a while to come around on. He's like, this actually seems to be working out for you. Like, okay, thanks.
Right. Like holding your phone up to the TV. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't let us go without talking a little bit about Spotify.
Sure.
So we met while we were both at Spotify. You led the essentially partnerships, commercial
partnerships for music.
Responsible for the music industry. Can you talk about how you made that transition and lessons learned?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll take a 30-second detour just to start, because by the end of my Shazam time, I had grown to run US ad sales, but then was also asked to build a global music team on top of it. So I was running both US ad sales and global music, which in hindsight is one of the coolest combos of 2 roles that you could really ever have. And so when you asked me what my best job ever was, that dual job was a close second to what I ended up talking about. But that was a phenomenal situation because we got to be the partnerships arm for every artist, manager, label who wanted to do more with Shazam, which by that point, to your point, was becoming ubiquitous. Everyone was using it. And artists wanted to have their songs featured. They wanted to have more content in there because it was a discovery mechanism. When you first Shazam an artist, what content do you want from the artist to make sure that they get to know the artist a little bit more? Then we had every brand that wanted to work with those artists, and we bridged those 2 worlds. And so I was very lucky to have just a great run with that. And I loved it. Started Idea Factory, that my own company, as you alluded to earlier, when I left Shazam, and then COVID hit. And so when COVID hit, it was one of those interesting moments in time of all of our deals went sideways, like everything did during COVID. And it was one of those moments of like, am I going to rebuild? Am I going to try something a little bit different? And then Spotify called looking for someone to run this commercial partnerships team, which was essentially the front door to the music industry from the standpoint of commercialization of products. Meaning, how do artists help promote themselves? Do they pay for it? Do we give it to them for free? Is it cross promotion? How do we improve our value exchange with the major record labels? How do we improve our value exchange with the indie record labels? And I said, well, that sounds an awful lot like what I did at Shazam. And they said, well, why the heck do you think we're calling you? And within a month, I think, pretty much had started working there. Starting during COVID was very, very interesting. June 2020 was when I started. But I loved being on this team where the two sides, meaning the actual music industry, record companies, and Spotify, both knew that they wanted to improve relationships. I kept preaching to our team relentless positivity. We are coming in to help improve what Spotify does on behalf of artists, managers, labels. We weren't directly involved, but publishers. How can we help there? And so we were the sales arm of what was at the time called Marketplace, team that you know very well. They created these tools, these products that helped artists promote themselves on the platform. And so we were the team that then brought that to the record labels, to the management companies, to show the value of, yes, X millions of songs get uploaded every day to Spotify, but here's how you can stand out by using these tools. And yes, they're paid, but they're best in class. Some of them actually help you make money as well. And that was a truly phenomenal moment. And I still give that product team at Spotify so much credit for how much, and you know this more than anyone, how much thought and care they put into creating those products to make sure that they were best in class.
Great people, a great product, low ego. That's just a great blend, honestly. And, testament probably to why the company's been so successful. So while you were at Spotify, I know you've actually written about how Jeremy Erlich, I'm pronouncing his name right, and I haven't said his name in a while, but Jeremy actually was a phenomenal example, I think, of leadership and providing a helping hand during a really challenging time. So, right, you were pretty new to Spotify, and actually, if I'm not mistaken, your mother passed away. Right. And so you had to have a very challenging conversation with Jeremy, but maybe take it from there. I mean, give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's truly one of the more amazing moments, dare I say, of my life, not just of a career. The time I started at Spotify, I mentioned, was the beginning of June. 4 weeks later, June 28th, in Santa Monica, 6 a.m., my phone rings 3 times in a row. It's one of those times that before even rolling over, I'm like, this can't be good. Why is my phone ringing 3 times in a row? It's my brother from Boston saying, Mom's dead. Scratch my eyes, try and get awake, make sure I'm hearing this right. It's that proverbial record scratch. What? And yeah, our mother unfortunately dropped dead of a heart attack. And I'm 4 weeks into a job. We had just gotten a new puppy. The COVID, they had closed, getting ready to limit, and I forget if they already closed them yet, but the beaches and the parks were limited in Santa Monica. It was a very, very weird time for so many reasons. I talked to my wife. We put together a plan. We should go to Boston. The whole family should go to Boston. And so then I had to call Jeremy, my boss, 4 weeks into this new job that I was thoroughly enjoying, and deliver this news. The travel wasn't as much of an issue because we were all working from home anyway. It was just more of a change in the midst of everything else. And so I called him and delivered the news, and right away, terribly sorry, what can we do? And very human response. And then as we're just going back and forth, at some point he goes, didn't you guys just get a new puppy? I said, yeah. He goes, you need me to come over and watch the puppy? And I said, what? And he goes, yeah, if it helps, I'm happy to just come over and watch the puppy. I go, Jeremy, that's the nicest thing in the world. Thank you so much. I think we're going to take the puppy with us because we're no longer going to be there. Oh, okay. well, if you need it, offer stands, let me know. And it just, to the point that you're bringing it up, it just stands out as one of these just unique moments in any conversation that I've ever had. You mentioned, work for good people, have good bosses. You don't know how good those people and those bosses are until they're tried at moments like that. And a new employee 4 weeks into a job calling you with the news of their mother passing. Yeah, sure. Most people do the, what can I do to help? How can I help? Just let me know. I'm here for you. To offer something so specific and so servant leadership, if that's the right term. I don't even know what the right term is for something like that, but just be of service, to be of service in a way, in a very specific way. And I've seen this in other ways too, of offer something specific, not let me know how I can help, but I'm going to bring a casserole every night for the next 3 nights so you don't have to worry about dinner. I'm going to watch your dog. It was such a touching, I'm just getting choked up even thinking about it now. I got off the phone, I looked at my wife, I told her the story. I was like, I can't even wrap my head around it. It's just one of the kindest, nicest things that anyone has ever done for me or offered for me.
Well, first of all, I mean, I'm such a challenging time. I know, even sure years ago, can still hear. I know it's hard. I'm sure thinking about
Yeah.
those moments.
Yeah.
But to your point about what Jeremy did, I think that it's, the noticing, just remembering you had a new dog, that specific ask. Like, I think those are those moments of leadership, which in a weird way often create more connection and loyalty and like
100%.
people wanting to work for you than
100%.
so much else. It's a great lesson, I think, in leadership.
I had an old boss had a great line, is you don't work for companies, you work for people. And it's so true. And so it's in those moments that you really get to experience it. And then in hindsight, you look back and realize how lucky you were that those were the people that you worked for. I always feel bad when I hear stories about bad bosses, because I've been so lucky to have so many good ones. And it makes me appreciate it every time I hear a bad story about a boss, and I just get to think about the good ones I've had. So I consider myself very lucky in that way.
Okay. I can't let you get out of this without talking a tiny bit about Idea Factory too. What are you doing now? What is Idea Factory? Yeah, go.
So Idea Factory is the company that I started when I left Shazam. Again, I won't say with any grand plan, other than it evolved as a happy evolution of when I was trying to take 6 months off when I left Shazam. We had our second child. When our first son was born, he was born December 15th. 3 weeks later, I was at CES at the beginning of January. When I was coming up to 6 years at Shazam, it was kind of one of those, like, I think this is my stop on the train. I think this is where I should exit. Or we're about to have a second kid. This would be a cool time to be around and be home. And so I left, and silly me, this is a typical guy thing, thought like, this is going to be great. I'm going to spend 6 months with my newborn. It's going to be awesome. Well, the dad's pretty useless in the first 6 months. So my wife was obviously doing all the work there and breastfeeding. But I got to take our, at that point, 2.5-year-old to and from preschool for the first 6 months. And I absolutely loved that. And that was phenomenal. But during that time, keeping in touch with friends in various parts of the industry. And I kept getting hit up with manager friends of mine saying, oh, you guys did that Coke deal. You guys did that Jaguar deal. Can you introduce us to the people you talk to? We'd love to talk to them about brand partnerships. Yeah, sure. Happy to help. And I'd make some connections. And I just started to notice that the partnerships weren't actually evolving from those conversations. I'd check in with them a few weeks later. And, oh yeah, they were nice. It was a good conversation, but nothing really flowed. And I'd start to ask questions. I was like, well, does your artist even drink this product? Does your artist like that? Well, yeah, sure. And if they paid us, da 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 da. And I said, no, don't do that. That's very transactional. Yes, they spend money in marketing and sponsorships, but don't come about it that way. Let me actually sit with your artist and listen to what brands they like. And then if I know some people on that brand side, I'll happily connect with those people. And that led to sitting with some amazing bands right off the bat, the Struts and Joe Elliott from Def Leppard, and really just doing a deep dive into what brands they love. And Luke Spiller from the Struts said, oh, I've always wanted to learn how to ride a Harley. Turns out a friend of mine had just went over to Harley Davidson. And so we were able to do some really cool stuff with them where they first sent a motorcycle trainer to work with them on the road and actually learn how to ride a bike safely. Then 3 months later, they called me and said, Luke wants to open the show at Pier 17 in New York by riding a Harley on stage. Okay, cool. What do you need? Well, we need a bike from a local dealer. We need some extra production money. Harley helped make that happen. And at that show, the president of Harley at the time and the band got to really hang out. And through that backstage experience, they just started talking about what the challenges were in each other's worlds in a very natural way. And the brand president said, well, we're just having trouble. We don't have enough events to just naturally suggest our Harley owners ride to and ride in between. And the Struts with their manager right away said, well, hang on, we're about to launch this US tour. California is one of your big markets, right? Yeah, it's year round. You can ride, of course. Well, what if we peel off 4 tour dates in California and call it the Harley Davidson Tour to California and encourage our fans of the band to ride between San Diego, Orange County, San Francisco, and Santa Cruz? And the president's eyes lit up and he's like, oh my gosh, you would do that? And they're like, yeah, we're going to do the tour anyway. Why not just tie you guys in with it? That makes a ton of sense. And we did a unique tour poster just for Harley, and they got to show off some bikes at the concerts and did some meet and greets at the dealerships, all because it naturally evolved from that conversation. And so that really got me to lean in and realize, okay, the power of starting from the artist side is pretty tremendous. And you get to tap into creativity of the artist, that they're super creative in music. Well, they're not only creative in music, they can apply that to other areas. And so from there, started talking to a bunch of other artists as well. So fast forward a bunch of years, obviously had the Spotify time in between, but came back to it about a year and a half ago. I always knew I'd get back to it, and the moment was right a year and a half ago to do that. And so have been sitting with more artists. We have probably about 30 or 40 artists that we're incredibly close to, that we've done the full deep dive with. Probably about 100 others that we're about 1 degree away from, that we now work with both the brand side and the artist side, where we just help connect those dots. We're working on a tour sponsorship for an auto brand for the fall, where they're looking to promote some tour events and have an on-site opportunity. Great, we can help them with that. We're doing a bunch of things with collectibles, where we're helping artists create collectibles, whether they be cards or figurines or really cool remakes of stage-worn clothing, things of that nature. Those are great. We just helped Train relaunch their wine brand. Just all sorts of really cool engagement points where we help the artist and the brand find mutually collaborative, mutually beneficial opportunities. And one of the things that I like to point out that we do is we speak both creative and commerce. So because of that background, and this is why I say that's so unique that at Shazam, I was able to run both US ad sales and global music teams, to speak to both the artist and manager community as well as the brand community and know how that middle ground could work, of why this deal will get done because we'll structure it like this, instead of, I need 5 times that the artist does this, and I need a meet and greet pass, and I need an all access pass for this. That's a no-go. That's just not even getting off the ground. But if we can help you structure it in a way that's beneficial to the artist, in a way that's going to actually come to fruition, we can do that. We bridge those two worlds. We speak both languages, and we're able to help those deals come to life as a result of it. And then it's also based on mutual desire to work together, not the transaction. And so those are some of the core things that we do. And that's what the company is now really doing.
The people you get to work with is always fascinating. I think, by the way, that's a theme top to top, or top to bottom rather,
always
with your career. I know it's something that lights you up, is making those connections. But I really do love, and I just want to just put a fine point on what you said in terms of just the authentic connection between the brands you work with and those artists, which is just really powerful and probably a good place to start any relationship with or any deal with.
The term authenticity gets thrown around a lot, and the term sell out used to be thought of a lot more. And it that kind of has faded away. The artist community, I think, has embraced brand deals in a way that has led to a lot of deals happening that wouldn't have in the past, where it might have felt like selling out. Well, they'll figure out how to put a twist on it, and you can always find a way to do it that you can quote unquote take the money and still feel okay with it. There's ways to do that. But to your point, when it starts from a truly authentic point, you just end up in such a better place. The artist will brainstorm on your behalf. The artist will you with ideas that you had never thought of. And that's where I love, notes that I get from CMOs where, we're mid-campaign or something, and the artist is posted for the 6th time, and maybe in the contract it said that they were supposed to post 3 times. And the CMO goes, "They're still posting. Wow, I can't believe this." I go, "Because they genuinely love this. You either created a product together, or they're representing a product they had already used that they just want to tell their fans about because they love it so much. They're not doing it because they have to and because it's a line item in a contract. They're doing it because they like it. And it just changes the whole dynamic when you start from that place."
It really does. Okay, I think this is a great spot to transition to our final segment. A message to a future traveler. Peter, what's one piece of advice that you would give to someone searching for their best job?
The best advice I think I would suggest is dive in wholeheartedly into something that you love. Be of service, be the one who does extra, be the one who does more. Ideally, you're already at a place that you're doing something you like and you can do more of it. If not, find a way to get yourself to the industry that you want to be in. And that can be volunteering, that can be interning, depending on the stage in your career that you're at. That can be part-time, and then go above and beyond and just go all out. I think effort shows in a tremendous way. Be proactive. Proactive ideas go such a long way. Anyone can do a task that's been assigned to you. That's fine. And make sure you do those well. But if you add to it, if you do more, if you ask, "Hey, I saw you asked for this. What if I added this?" Or "You did this, or we did this last week. Would this be helpful as a follow-up next week?" Those proactive things get you noticed in a huge way. That we had that at many points at the teams that I've led, that it's the people who through their actions show that they want to do more, they want to be a bigger part of this team, that ends up growing to more. You hear some pretty lousy stories about the generationally this or that, oh, people show up now and 6 months later they want a promotion, more money. I haven't found that to be true across the board in any stretch. I have found that universally the people who do more will find ways to have more opportunities follow them in a bigger way.
What a nice place to end. Peter, I can literally talk to you. I know
Same.
We had a long convo, but we could have kept going, which is always fun.
It's a good sign. No, I always love talking with you. Absolutely.
It is a good sign. And I've said this a few times before, but one of the reasons that I wanted to make this podcast and do this show was I get to learn from and get wisdom from the smartest people that I know. And so thank you so much, because I think there's a lot of nuggets in here that I'm going to take with me as I think about what I try to do next with my best job.
It's an honor to hear you say that. I appreciate that. And the feeling is mutual. I always genuinely love our conversation. And like we were talking about the last time when we were hanging out together in Chicago, it reminds me we just need to find ways to be in the same city at the same time more often.
We'll definitely do it. All right. Thanks a lot, Peter.
All right, Alex.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, send it to a friend and give us a follow. We're looking forward to making more of the best job I've ever had. What's been the most interesting brand product collab?
So the band Train, Pat Monahan, their lead singer, is a huge wine guy, was looking for a new partner for his wine. So we launched the wine. The quirky part, though, was Train, through their management company, was able to produce a vinyl that actually had wine in it, and they called it a winyl. It actually plays as a vinyl record. We were on the content shoot, and I won't say that no one thought it was going to work, but it put the needle on it, starts playing, everyone's eyes light up, and it's like, oh my God, that's so cool.